Okay? Share natin. Okay, everybody can see the screen, right?
Good evening po.
Good evening, Joanna. Bigla ka nawala kanina.
Oo, naglolo ko yung internet.
Mag-start na tayo ngayon kahit wala pa yung mga ibang classmates nyo. So, para makarami tayo or 89 slides lang
Okay.
naman. So, let's see. Okay. So, speaking test, usually ito yung mga ninenervous yung mga estudyante. Pero matataas naman ang grades nila sometimes. Karamihan sa writing. So, don't worry. So, okay. When can you take the test for the speaking test? Usually pa lang speaking test, hiwalay siya sa main test ng listening, reading, and writing as mentioned earlier. So either sometimes within the day, halimbawa let's say wait. Halimbawa ang exam mo is Saturday for listening, speaking, and for listening, writing, and reading Saturday. Let's say okay, January 15, naka-schedule ka ng January 15. Sometimes may mga bibigyan ka ng schedule sa afternoon, yun yung speaking mo. Sometimes, 7 days before, within the 7 days before, pwede ka magpa-schedule din ng speaking or within 7 days after. Ayan. So, say, January 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pwede. Depende yan sa sa British Council or sa IDP kung ano yung mga slots na maibibigay nila sa'yo. Or sometimes pwede ka rin mamili. Pero alam ko mahirap na ngayon, sila na lang nagbibigay. Tapos class ngayon, ang bago sa speaking is, I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, nakamask na kayo. So, nakamask kayo habang nagsispeaking, tapos may acrylic sheet across the examiner. So, imagine may protection na nga, may barrier na nga na plastic, nakamask ka pa while you're speaking. Yun ang bago ngayon. Tapos, so, halimbawa kung nag-exam kayo, tapos you wear glasses, tapos nakamask pa kayo, some of my students who took the exam said na, preferably if you can wear your contact lens, better. Kasi nagfa-fog. So, Dova, if you feel na during the test, mahihirapan kayo, sabi nila nahihirapan sila, naka-eyeglasses sila, tapos, naka-mask pa sila while doing the test, the reading test even, nagfa-fog yung glasses nila. So if you can use your contact lens or if you have options later, use your contact lens para hindi ka mahirapan during the exam. So for the speaking test, practice nyo na naka-mask kayo unless na naman they will make additional changes. Pero for now, that's the current practice. You're wearing a mask while you're doing the speaking test. We don't know na naman kung ano na naman yung later na practice nila. Maybe the plastic barrier would suffice. Okay na sana yon later. Or baka nakamask pa rin kayo. Hopefully not. Kasi, di ba yung oxygen issues and pag nagsasalita ka na nakamask, mahirap, di ba? So, pray nyo na lang na when you take the exam, sana iba na naman yung palakad nila. So approximately, ang speaking exam, it would be around 15 minutes. It's very short. They would just call you inside the room, hiwa-hiwalay, isa-isa. They would call you and, yeah, parang job interview. You get to sit and you speak to the examiner. So, nahati yan sa 3 parts. Ang part 1, it's a question and answer about familiar topics. We will go through ano yung mga familiar topics. Part 2, it's the long turn. It's the long turn. So you'll be talking about your personal experience. So it would be, it's like you will do your own speech for 2 to 3 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes. So it's the long turn because it's your turn to shine. Yun. Tapos part 3 na naman, it's a question and answer portion naman, but it would be on a more abstract topic. But related sa part 2. Halimbawa, kung part 2 ang topic is education or your past experience regarding your favorite subjects, part 3, ang topic would be on a general or abstract way, pag-uusapan nyo ang education or let's say maybe homeschooling, mga ganyan na, ganun na mga topic. i-connect nila sa topic mo sa part 2. So, mas mahirap yung question sa part 3, mas maraming tanong. So, just be ready. Pero parang alam mo yung parang stock knowledge. So, yan, maganda rin na nagbabasa kayo lagi. Anyway, I'll be giving you some topics, yung mga sample topics. So, basahin nyo lang. Hope you can get through them all or just read them para lang ready kayo. Okay. So, mapapansin nyo, it will be the same topic all throughout. So, sometimes kung sa speaking test number 1, sa part 1, nagsimula sila tungkol sa personal experience mo sa education. Tapos part 2, magbibigay sila ng anong memorable something na naman tungkol sa schooling mo. Part 3, yun lang, isang tema lang yan lagi. Ganun sa speaking exam. Usually, halimbawa, ang pinaka-importante would be part 2. Galingan niyo yung part 2. Kasi halimbawa, sa part 1, sinasabi nila na meron ng first impression, di ba? So, they will give you already a 6.5. Halimbawa, ganun, first impression ng examiner, pang 6.5 ka. Tapos, mapapansin na lang niya sa part 2 na dito ka ba? Tigil ka pa niya sa 6.5 or pwede ka niyang taasan or babaan. So, kailangan galingan nyo sa part 2. Tapos sa part 3, doon na nila i-decide kung pang 6.5 ka talaga o pang 7. So, kailangan i-set nyo yung tone ka. Kailangan nyo i-set yung tone kung ano yung may bibigay na grade talaga sa inyo. So, laging parang galingan nyo sa una, tapos sa second, kailangan nyo i-set talaga na either talaga mas magaling ka or not, mga ganyan. So, let's talk about the speaking test part 1. So, it's around 4 to 5 minutes and they will ask you questions regarding familiar topics. So, ano yung mga familiar topics? Topics regarding your hometown. Taga saan ka? Saan ka lumaki? Ano yung i-describe mo yung hometown mo? Mga ganun yung mga questions. They would ask you about your family. May mga ilan ang brothers mo, ilan ang sisters mo, siblings. Buhay pa ba yung parents mo, grandparents mo? Questions regarding family, relatives, mga ganyan. Questions about your work or your ano ginagawa mo or do you study also? Ano yung mga hobbies mo? Yung mga interests mo? Do you like reading? Do you like shopping? Do you like painting? Yan yung mga topics. So, importante, to be prepared sa part 1, you need to self-reflect. Parang alam niyo na later, naka-ready na kayo ano yung favorite book nyo, if there is, ano yung favorite movie nyo, ano yung favorite genre nyo ng mga movies. Mahilig ba kayo sa horror? Mahilig ba kayo sa romance? Mahilig ba kayo sa comedy? Ano pa? Do you like reading? So, may favorite books ba kayo? Do you paint? What's your favorite color? Ano pa? Basta self-reflection, dapat alam niyo na. That's how to prepare for part 1 of the speaking test. Again, they would ask you kung ano yung mga future plans niyo. Are you planning to be a student later on? Or are you planning to have a family of your own? Mga ganyan. Talagang pang personal na reflection. Mga pang friendship na tanong or getting to know stage, ganun. So, very important na you have to be relaxed during part 1. Kasi yun yung magsiset ng tone. Tapos, make sure na, lagi ko sinasabi, when, for example, first, tatanungin nila yung pangalan nyo. So, make sure na pag tinanong yung pangalan, you have to enunciate yung pangalan nyo clearly. Okay? Bagalan nyo na, halimbawa, okay, my name is Diana. Right? Bagalan mo, ganyan. Tapos, smile. Huwag kayong nervyusin. I remember na you mentioned na kung nagsa-stutter kayo, try to be confident. Try to look at them straight in the eye. But if you cannot look at them straight in the eye, dito ang tingnan nyo. Diba? Or look up, look down, mga ganyan. Tapos yung boses nyo, huwag kayong mag-bow down when you talk. Kasi diba yung boses nyo pababa, so hindi maririnig. So, but always, make sure na nakataas yung chin nyo. Chin up kayo na nagsasalita, smile, tapos Tapos, mimic them. Di ba sometimes, may mga studies kasi na sinasabi nila na if you want to say, if you want the person to like you have to mimic them. So, kung halimbawa yung mga tao na, kung nakaganon yung head, igaganon mo rin yung head, or kung ganon yung hand nila, nakalagay sa lap nila, iganon mo rin sa lap. May mga studies na ganon, nagayahin mo yung kausap mo para magustuhan ka. So, ganon din, para mapagaan yung loob sa'yo ng tao, gayahin mo. Yun ang sinasabi nila. So basically, it's preparing for a job interview, pero it's on a more personal level. So always when you're talking to the examiner, maybe consider them as your friend, or as a friend, or somebody na meet nyo lang sa elevator maybe, and you can openly share what's in your mind, mga ganyan. So don't be nervous. Okay, class? Huwag nyo rin masyadong isipin na, baka mali yung grammar ko, mga ganyan. Later na yon, pero ang pinaka-importante is you should be relaxed. Para hindi kayo nabablanko. Kasi karamihan nga naman.
Minsan kasi parang nakakakaba, lalo na pagka nakaka-intimidate yung nagtatanong, lalo na pag masungit ba, yung first impression, titignan mo palang nakaganon na agad. Kasi na-experience ko sa consul, sa US Embassy. So, bansungit nung at alam mo yung kahit na yung land mo, ilang square feet, kung magkano pinagamit, yung very, napakasungit. So, medyo kakabahan ka talaga, hindi mo maiiwasan. So, paano po?
Leia, pag sa US Embassy, iba yun. Sa IELTS naman, kasi they know naman na it's for your future, mas approachable sila.
Okay.
Oo, mas mayabang kasi talaga ang mga taga-US Embassy or sa consulate. Mayabang sila. Oo. Kaya don't worry. Kasi naman pag sa IELTS, iba, mas approachable ang mga tao. So don't worry. Oo.
Okay.
If not, just relax and smile. May mga techniques na breathe and smile, relax, ganun ka lang. Siguro, baka hindi lang, may chance siguro na baka hindi sila maging approachable kung may pinagdadaanan rin sila, di ba? Kung may sakit sila, or pagod na rin sila. Yun lang naman yung mga situations na ganun. Pero, more or less, hindi sila masungit. Kasi kung yun alam mo yung service provider sila, ang British Council yung nagbibigay na exams, service provider. So, at the end of the day, mabait sila. Oo. Hindi yung parang hindi nila kaaway or parang kailangan nila kayong dikdikan or talagang parang iniimbestigahan, di ba? Oo. Kasi pag US Consulate, iniimbestigahan nila kayo. Or, di ba? Ganun yun. Iba pag sa US Consulate. Iba pag mga talaga, interview ng mga ganyan. For visa purposes. Mayabang mayabang. Ganun talaga. Pero pag sa IELTS, hindi. So don't worry. Wala naman ako na sa mga estudyante ko naman, di naman nila sinasabi na ma'am, hindi naman yung parang hindi naman sila naka-encounter ng masungit na nag-i-interview sa kanila. So wala silang sinasabi na ang sungit ng interviewer, tell your students ma'am na mag-ready, mga ganyan, may chance na may masungit. Wala. Tapos may mga pupunta rin na British Council na nag-o-orient dati sa Filipino Institute, talaga approachable sila. Okay. So don't worry. Oo. Huwag ka mag-alala. Siguro lang yung thought na siguro pag ninenervyos ka tapos hindi mo na alam yung sagot. Constant practice na lang. If you want, let me know. Pagkatapos natin ng speaking test, if you want again to have another shot at an interview, let me know, di ba? Kasi it's just 15 minutes of my time. We can set a Zoom meeting anytime, di ba? Just para lang mas mapagaan. Di ba? The more naman na you get to be interviewed, the more relaxed you are.
Correct. Opo.
So no worries. Huwag kayong mag-alala. So if you feel na hindi nyo pa kaya ninervous kayo, just let me know. Then ma'am, message lang kayo, ma'am. Yung kayo nga, yung estudyante ko kanina, or yung earlier na kwento ko kay Dova, na, ma'am, pwede bang 3 beses nyo akong interviewin in different dates? Ganun siya. Sabi ko, walang problema, just let me know. Sabi ko, pero ang free time ko mga 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, ganun. Sabihan mo lang ako pag online ka na, 15 minutes lang naman eh. Mga ganyan. Di ba? Para napapractice lang, maalis lang yung kaba. Ganun lang yun. So if you feel na hindi pa kayo ready, tapos kasi matagal, di ba? Either hindi pa kayo nagpa-set ng exam nyo, or after 2 months pa kayo, yung 2 months or 1 month, kasi you feel na hindi pa kayo ready, let me know. Balikan nyo lang ako. Kasi ang maganda na ngayon, kasi may Zoom na tayo, di ba? Compared noon na pre-COVID, walang ganito. Oh, very convenient sa atin na mag-set ng meetings online. Yun ang maganda. Pero syempre, iba pa rin yung one-on-one. Pero at least, di ba, iba na, napapractice nyo na. Kaya walang problema. Okay, ano yung strategies for speaking part 1? So keep your answers fairly short, but then you have to expand. So ito, do you like your hometown? Mali yung sagot na no, not really, mga 3 words. Mali yan. Mahirap rin na super ang dami-dami, napaka-wordy. Diba? Do you like your hometown? No, not really. I mean, I lived there all my life. I grew up there as a kid and it's a horrible place. Masyado naman mahaba yan. So at least give or take mga 2 sentences kasi marami pa silang questions eh. Ang magandang sagot ito, answer directly, say why, and give an example. Always ganun naman eh, pati sa pagsusulat at saka sa speaking, you have to answer directly, give an example, say why. So, ang example dito ng magandang sagot is, no, not really. I mean, I grew up there as a kid and there were no parks. There was nowhere to go out. I mean, for example, there wasn't even a cinema there, so I don't really like it. It's very short, di ba, compared dito na napaka-wordy. Pero if you feel naman na sometimes you can answer this, but make sure na talagang relax lang kayo. Pero at the end of the day, keep it short and simple. Di ba? KISS. Lagi yun. Keep it short and simple. Pati sa pagsusulat, sa pagsasalita, always KISS. Keep it short and simple. Ano pa? Kasi marami pa silang tatanungin sa inyo. And at the same time, anyway, basta wag kayong mag 1 word or 2 word or 3 words na sagot ha. Kasi mag-i-expect sila na mas marami pa kayong sasabihin. So again, you have to talk about yourself. Sa part 1, may mga estudyante na nag-generalize. Sa part 3 yun. Part 3 yun ng speaking exam. Sa part 1, again, it's all about you. Anong pinag-aralan mo, ilan ang siblings mo, lahat yan. Tatanungin, mahilig ka ba kumain, anong gusto mong kinakain, mahilig ka ba magluto, mahilig ka magbasa, yung mga ganyan. Ganun yung mga tanong. So, i-prepare nyo yung sarili nyo, natatanungin kayo ng mga ganun. So, ayan, di ba? Sabi nila, ito tignan mo, sample to ng general na sagot. Do you like your hometown? Yes, hometowns are very, very important. They give us a sense of cultural identity. We should love our hometown because they are important in the growth of the nation and, di ba, napaka-general, dapat personal. Do you like your hometown? So talk about your hometown. You don't answer in a general way. Ayan, yung lagi ko mini-mention, always be natural when talking kasi imagine na you met a new friend tapos you're telling them about your hometown. Ganun ka dapat magsalita in excited manner, parang tourist guide na hindi, parang ganun na you want them to come to your hometown, so you tell them the good parts about your hometown, the negative parts, mga ganyan. Kasi otherwise, it would sound na, yun nga, you memorize yung mga answer mo. Yan ang no-no. Kahit bigyan ko kayo ng mga sample topics, sample answers, never memorize. That's why sinasabi ko sa mga estudyante, okay, these are the possible topics that would come out. So, prepare yung mga answers ninyo. Self-reflection na kaagad. Again, you have to get familiar with the different question types. Very important yan. Kasi, teka. Bakit wala yun? Teka, class ha. May video dapat yan eh. Kasi halimbawa, kung tatanungin kayo sa routine ninyo, may mga question type na gano'n eh. Tatanungin ano yung daily routine ninyo. So, ang gagamitin mong verbs, yung present tense, di ba? I wake up every day at 5 o'clock. I eat my breakfast at around 7 o'clock. I take the bath after having my breakfast around 7:30. So, napansin nyo, puro present tense yun pag daily routine. Mga ganyan. Teka, class. Bakit nawawala yung video niyan? Hanapin natin. Sorry, nasaan na siya? Speaking. Nawawala yung video ko. Na talaga. Teka. May video yan eh. Wait, class. Sorry, nawawala. Okay, later. Never mind. Resume siya. Can you wait? Okay. So let's go to speaking test part 2. Nawala. So ano yung guide natin for speaking test part 2? So ang speaking test part 2 ano yun? This is your time, so it's the long turn. They call it the long turn kasi yun nga parang haba-haba kasi you have to do a monologue. You speak on your own. So you'll be talking for 2 minutes. So it is your chance to show the examiner how well you can talk for extended period of time, which is around 2 minutes only. So ang topic would be it's related to personal experience and you will be given a minute to prepare. So ano nangyayari during that time? So the examiner will give you a topic card. Tapos on the card, there will be a short description of a topic. Tapos ano yung mga ideas na dapat i-mention mo when you do your speech or your monologue. So halimbawa, ito yung sample topic. Describe a beautiful place to visit in your country. And during your speech or monologue, you should say where it is, how to get there, what there is to do when you are there, and explain why you recommend this place. Very important yan. Di ba kasama yan sa accuracy, pati sa writing. Naalala nyo when we discuss writing, nagre-grade rin ng accuracy. So, when you speak, dapat huwag nyo kakalimutan yung mga yan. Lahat ng nasa bullet points. And that's for, yeah. Another sample topic. Describe a subject you enjoyed studying at school. You should say when and where you started studying it, what lessons were like, what made the subject different from other subjects, and explain why you enjoyed the subject. So basically, they will give you a topic card, they will give you a scrap paper, and you also have a pencil, or probably they would also give you a pencil, and you can write. And you can start preparing. And that's for 1 minute. So ayan, the examiner will give you 1 minute to prepare your talk. So you'll be given a piece of paper to write down some ideas. Mga words rin lang. Huwag kayong gumawa ng speech nyo. Mga notes lang na pwede nyong basahin. Parang prompt, cue cards or cue words or prompt words. Para okay lang kayo. Titignan nyo kung ano yung topic, tapos sasabihin nyo, explain nyo, ganun. Titignan nyo kung ano yung mga keywords nyo, tapos magsasalita kayo, para hindi lang kayo mawala. Tapos you can make a list of ideas and keywords or draw a mind map. Maganda rin na gumawa kayo ng mind map. Later, I'll probably send you a link kung paano gumawa ng mind map if you're that type of person na mas nakikita nyo ang isang bagay or nakakonceptualize nyo ang mga bagay through pictures. So use a mind map kung ganun kayong tao. Then after that, you give your talk. So you are expected to speak without interruption from the examiner. So around 1 to 2 minutes yan. Then after that, may mga follow-up questions ng examiner. Sometimes pray na walang follow-up questions, ibig sabihin, marami kayong nakwento. Pero pag may mga follow-up questions, mas parang nabitin yung examiner, so they will ask you more follow-up questions. So hopefully just continue talking and talking, mga ganyan. Magkwento kayo. Sundan niyo yung nasa keywords niyo, yung mga prompt words na ginamit niyo sa notes. So after 2 minutes or earlier, if you have finished, the examiner will interrupt and ask you 1 or 2 extra questions about the topic. So may time na pwede silang mag-ask, may time na hindi. Kasi sometimes, yung mga follow-up questions nila, sometimes na-cover mo na when you were speaking. So they wouldn't ask those questions anymore. May mga instances na ganun. So hopefully, matatas kayo, okay yung speech ninyo, so they wouldn't ask you for more follow-up questions. Then immediately, you will proceed to part 2 of the exam. Ayan na. Immediately, you go to part 3 of the IELTS speaking exam. So ano yung mga tips? So, number 1, make notes before you talk. The examiner will give you 1 minute to prepare your talk. Make it easier for yourself, so you have to make notes before you start talking. Ano yung mga paano magbigay ng notes? So let's listen to this. Let's watch and listen to this video. Teka.
Now, let's get into one of the most important aspects of doing well on IELTS Speaking Part 2, and that involves note-taking. The note-taking process is very, very straightforward. In terms of your opening, I'm going to talk about this probably in the next slide, but when you're taking notes, do not write down your opening statement. Do not write down the first 2 sentences of what you're going to say. That is the biggest mistake that I see so many students do. Don't do that. You need to focus on getting the information that you're going to talk about in your discussion points. Because if you have good notes, when you're speaking, you can focus on how you're going to say something and not have to think about first what you're going to say, then how you're going to say it. So for point number 1, you're going to, let's go back for a second, sorry. For point 1, you're going to write down 2 or 3 discussion points. Okay. And then for point number 2, you're going to have 2 or 3 discussion points. For point number 3, you have 2 or 3 discussion points. And you have a conclusion. Right. Now, if you have 4 discussion points, then that's fine. You'll have point 1, point 2, point 3, point 4, and you'll have a conclusion. Like I said, sometimes you can have 3 discussion points or you can have 4 discussion points. All right, so looks like my computer has been trying to jump to this screen. I guess maybe it knows that this is something really important that I want to say to you, which is don't make this big mistake in your note taking. Don't write out your opening, right? So, for example, some students, when they take notes, they'll write out their opening statement, right? Although I've had many phones over the years, I'll always remember the first cellular phone I ever owned. Today I'm going to talk about my Nokia 550, the first phone I owned, right? Some students spend their 1 minute of note-taking time and they'll write out their opening statement. That is the biggest mistake that causes bad scores on part number 2. Number 1, all you're doing is copying the question language. You're copying down the question language. When you're just here, you can see here, it says, describe your first mobile phone you ever owned, right? And in this statement over here, you can literally see that the person is copying the question language, which shows zero talent in English. This is what most basic level students do on the exam. Don't do that. Also, when you write out an opening statement, it prevents you from taking notes on the discussion prompts. That's what you need to do. You have to be able to take those notes on the 3 or 4 discussion points. That way you know what you're going to talk about. So now we're going to look at some examples of taking notes. This first question is a question that's dealing with an object. A question is dealing with an object, right? So it says, describe your first mobile phone you ever owned. Please say, how old were you when you got it? When and why did you buy it? How did you feel when you first got it? So over here, we can see that we have the opening statement, and I did not write anything. We only have 1 minute to take these notes. 1 minute, that's all. So within that time period, I'm going to write down some notes for discussion point number 1. There are my 3 things I'm going to talk about. I'm going to write down my discussion point number 2. Here are the items I'm going to talk about in terms of when and why did I buy it. And here are my points or my ideas for discussion point number 3. How did I feel? Excited, jumping around. I ran around and showed everybody. Over here, you can see that I'm saying for point number 1, you need to take 20 seconds to write down what you're going to talk about. 20 seconds for point number 3, 20 seconds for point number 4. Now, of course, if there are 4 points or 4 discussion points, that's going to be 15 seconds for each discussion point. Now, on the exam itself, this is what your notes would look like, because you're going to be given paper to take notes on. So you would write down what you're going to talk about for discussion point 1, what you're going to write down for discussion point 2, and what would you write down, what you're going to talk about for discussion point 3. If you have this information in front of you, it makes it very, very easy to be able to speak, because you know what's coming next. All right, let's get into another example of organizing and taking notes. Taking notes really is the most helpful skill that I can try to explain to you for part number 2. Most of my students that score really, really well, and I'm talking about the ones that are getting 8s and 9s, they take notes. A lot of times when I find out students are getting 5s and 6s in their speaking, they don't take notes. They're trying to speak off the top of their head. Here, we're talking about an activity. Describe a paid work you or your friend had done. You should say when you did that, where and how long you did, why that work is important to you. Now here, we actually have 4 discussion points, because the first thing we have to do is describe it. Then we have to say when we did it, where and how, and why that work is important. So in terms of the opening, I'm not going to write down the opening statement, but I do have to describe it. So I'm going to describe lawn work, mowing the grass, cutting trees. When you did that, summer 2014, June, it was hot. Point number 2, where and how long did you do it? In my local neighborhood, 10-block radius, and did it for 2 months. Why was it important? Earned money, worked hard, saved for school. Right? I'm able to, and you're able to, take those notes and get this information within 1 minute. What I really want you to be able to do is get that information really in about 45 seconds. Because if you can do it in 45 seconds, that's going to then give you 15 seconds to really just get your thoughts together so you're ready to start. Sometimes if you're taking notes right up to the 1 minute mark, that can be harmful, because when it's time to start, you're fumbling around and you're not ready. So really, let's try to finish up our note taking in 45 to 50 seconds. Give yourself 15 or 10 seconds to be able to prepare and gather your thoughts and start out great. Here is another example of a question. In this one, we're talking about a car breaking down, so we're talking about an incident, a situation or an incident. Describe an instance when your car broke down. Please say when and where, what did you do, and how did you feel? Right? So in terms of the opening, I'm just going to write, I would write down the ideas or the car that I'm going to talk about. I'm talking about a Ford Pinto from 1973. It's an old car. In terms of the first point, when and where, summer 1983, July, Interstate 75, Florida, side of the road. What did you do? Panic, asked for help, got the equipment. And number 3, how did you feel? Dejected, elated, and eventually satisfied. I have my notes. I finish up my notes in 45 to 50 seconds. I take 10 to 15 seconds, gather my thoughts. When that examiner says start, boom, I'm ready to go. Describe your favorite TV program you watch regularly. So this will be a question about describing your favorite. We have to describe it. We have to say when and where and why. So in my opening, I'm not going to write the opening. I'm just going to put the name of the TV show, Star Trek. Then in terms of describing it, I'm going to describe the TV show, happens 500 years in the future, involves space travel, first contact, discussion point 2, when and where, when does it come on, and where do I watch it? And discussion point number 3, why do I like it? It triggers my imagination, makes me feel hopeful, I get to see future inventions. I have my information in front of me, I can see what I'm going to talk about now. I know some of you are going to say, well, would you give me some examples? Would you speak it and let me see what it sounds like? I'm going to do that, okay? That's going to be in another video. Now, this is what it looks like when you're talking about a place that you would like to go and read, right? So in terms of an opening statement, we would not write out an opening statement. They're going to ask you about where do you go? And so that's point number 1, where do you go? The beach, Grand Barraby, which is in Côte d'Ivoire, which is in the western part of the Ivory Coast. Point number 2, how often do you go? Once a week in the fall or spring, twice a week in the summer. When I don't work, I go 2 or 3 times. Point number 3, why do you go there? Provides clarity, no distractions, and allows escape into a story. Right, those would be the items that I would talk about, and that's the information that I would get in 45 to 50 seconds. Next, describe an event where you invited family and or friends. So now, this is a question where we're talking about an event. Again, in the opening, I'm not going to write out an opening statement. When and where? May 2000, Phillips Restaurant, Maryland. How was the food? Salad bar, appetizers, seafood buffet. Did you enjoy it? I'm going to talk about what the conversations, the stories from friends, and having everyone together. When it's time to talk, I'm just going to really walk through that information and create sentences. That's where you're able to show your talent in part number 2. Are you able to take these ideas and create sentences in a coherent manner that's going through a storytelling process? Right? And in this one, we're talking about a person, right? Name a person you know who speaks a few languages. Who is this person? What languages? How does she use this ability? No opening statement. Who is the person? Mia, friend from work from Morocco. Point number 2, what languages do they speak? Amazigh, Darija, French, Classical Arabic, and English. And point number 3, document translation in terms of how does she use the ability, document translation, also as a bridge between communities, and creating subtitles for movies. Right? So that's a language question. Okay? So thank you for joining us in this explanation.
So let's have a note-taking exercise class. So, I'll give you a topic. Tapos, do your notes for 1 minute. Then, we'll try to present. Okay? You will try to present. Konti lang naman tayo, so we have time. Okay lang sa inyo? Saan na kayo? Saan na kayo?
Yes po.
Oo.
Okay po.
Kasi ang maganda ko, konti lang tayo. Kayo pala. So, you have time to present. Say even if you don't know the topic, try to come out with an answer, maybe. Just para kahit gumawa kayo. So, you have 1 minute to take notes on this part 2 topic. I'll set the timer for a minute. Tapos, okay. And follow the note-taking method that was demonstrated earlier. Teka. So, ito. Describe what you usually do in your leisure time. You should say what you do, who you do it with, where you do it. Explain why you like to spend your free time this way. So, let's say I'll give you 2 minutes muna. Okay? So, 53, 55. So, timer starts now. Ay, may nakaready na ba kayo mga papel?
Yes po.
Sige.
Yes. Ma'am,
Balik-
ano nga po ulit yun? Ulit. Yung
Ito,
yung
ito.
gagawin.
Basahin mo.
Okay.
Nakita mo?
Okay,
Sige.
okay na.
Okay ng 2 minutes para mas... Note lang hawag kayong gumawa ng speech nyo. Dapat from the notes, from the words, makabuo kayo ng sentences. 54, mga 56 yan. 56 minutes. Ready na? Nakagawa na kayo ng notes? 2 minutes na yon. Teka, pause ko yung recording. Okay. So, describe a good law in your country. You should say what the law is. How you first learn about this law, who benefits from this law, and explain why you think this is a good law. So, try to be creative. Alam ko may sometimes hindi nyo alam kung ano yung mga laws sa Pilipinas, di ba? So, anything simple, kahit yung mga mga ordinance sa class, ordinansa sa barangay nyo, ordinansa sa city. Halimbawa, yung mga no smoking law, no bawal mag-ingay pag gabi, mga ganyan, di ba? Or yung PhilHealth law, di ba? Naging kanyan sa OFW natin na kailangan natin magbayad ng ang tawag doon? Ng contributions. Mga ganyan. So, 2 minutes. 1:13. Okay. Prepare. Okay, let's resume recording. So you finish with that part. Again, it would be a good thing also pag you have to memorize a good opener. Kasi diba sometimes yun nga, yung opening statement natin, sometimes yung ginagaya lang natin, yung ginagamit natin yung words. Yung oo. So instead na nag-iisip na kayo kung paano niyo ipa-paraphrase, you can memorize a good opener. Parang halimbawa, so here are some examples. Like, I'd like to talk about blah, blah, blah. Well, there are many blank, just fill in mo na lang, I could talk about, but I suppose blank I've experienced, had, is, or was, maganyan. Parang, alam niyo na kung ano yung gagamitin nyo. Pero anyway, okay naman na yung okay naman na yung mga opener nyo kanina. Yung parang, napapractice na kayo. Kaya, so it's good, don't worry. So ayan, if your topic is describe a beautiful place to visit in your country, you could say, I'd like to talk about a beautiful place in my country. So yan, basic yan, di ba? Well, there are many beautiful places which I could talk about, but I suppose the most beautiful place I've been is, or the most gorgeous place, the most captivating place that I fell in love with in your country was, or is, mga ganun. Palitan mo lang yung mga adjectives, just to improve your band score. But then, kung feeling nyo mape-pressure kayo, just follow yung mga words at the end of the day. And Leia, wag kang mape-pressure, pati ikaw, Duva, wag kang lalamigin. No? Ayan, best thing is you have to paraphrase the topic. So, when referring to the topic, you don't use the words from the topic card. Pero again, lagi ko sinasabi, kung feeling nyo mawawala kayo, balikan nyo na yung topic card, gamitin nyo para hindi kayo nervyusin. Pero pag ang goal nyo is to have a higher score, you have to paraphrase. It's very important. So, pag halimbawa yan, paano paraphrase? So, if the topic is describe a beautiful place to visit in your country, hindi mo sasabihin na, I'm going to describe a beautiful place to visit in China. This is okay, but take note, you'll get a 5. More or less 5, 5.5, mga ganyan. Again, if you want a higher band score, ito pwede mong sabihin, I'm going to talk about a stunning destination which people can travel to in the northeast of China. So, pinalitan yung beautiful, ginawang stunning. Place, ginawang destination. Diba? Again, keep talking. Para, okay yung ginawa mo, John, diba? Na you just kept on talking and talking. And kahit you feel na iniikot mo lang yung topic or iniiba mo lang yung pag-explain, pero you kept on talking. So, yun nga, sabi mo ang ikli ng explanation, ng parang speech mo, pero ang haba na. Kasi kwento ka lang ng kwento, parang nagkikwento ka lang. Oo. So, Leia, kwento ka lang ng kwento, practicein mo. Siguro ngayon, magtagalog ka. Halimbawa, may mga topics. Gawa ka ng speech mo in Tagalog para alam mo lang kung paano ka anong tawag doon? Alam mo lang yung anong isusunod na kwento mo. And later translate it into Filipino. In English, I mean. So as a start, Leia, kung sa tingin mo na nakukulangan ka sa mga ideas, start ka muna for now sa Tagalog. Pag nagkikwento ka sa Tagalog, ito yung law na natutunan ko, nakuha ko kay Rafi Tulfo, blah, blah, blah. Tignan mo, di ba pag ina-explain mo ng Tagalog, mas mabilis ka magkwento? So try to practice yung mga ganyan, in Tagalog muna. Then later, try mo i-translate sa English. Pero at least makakuha ka na, mahahasa ka na kung paano mo ina-expand yung yung kwento mo, 'di ba? Overshare, remember, overshare lang. Na parang 'di ba sometimes ayaw mo naman maging overshare kasi natatakot ka na hindi ka papakinggan. Dito papakinggan ka kasi grade-gradean ka. So mag-overshare ka lang. No? Oo. 2 minutes. Daldal ka lang. So for now, practice ka sa Tagalog. Ayan, ano yung law? So at least alam mo yung mga points kung paano mo ikikwento, di ba? Mas madali. Again, make eye contact with the examiner. Ito sometimes yung wala namang problema. You can, like, for example, 2 seconds, you look at them in the eyes or look here. Then again, pag nag-iisip ka, pwede ka namang tumingin sa gilid or tumingin sa baba. Di ba si Dova kanina, anyway, you look at your notes naman eh. So hindi naman kailangan na talagang the whole time tinitignan mo lang sa mata yung examiner. So tignan nyo, balikan nyo yung notes nyo, you speak, pwedeng pag nag-iisip ka naman, pwede kang tumatanaw sa malayo, walang problema yon. Pero balikan mo pa rin yung examiner. Kasi, di ba sometimes, di ba ang sabi ko sa inyo, paano nyo kukunin yung, paano nyo mapapalagay ang loob ng isang tao? Tignan nyo sila sa mata or imimik nyo sila para maging close kayo. Di ba? Ganun lang yon. Kasi bawal naman ang touching ngayon. Kung pwede sanang touching, di parang, pero bawal pala. Pati sa interview, bawal na yun ang touching, di ba? So, you mimic them, you look at them, you smile at them. So, ganyan. So, para mapalagay nyo lang yung loob. Pero wag nyong titigan ng, lalo na kung gwapo siguro yung examiner nyo. Mas maganda yun, no? Mas madali. Mas madali.
Na siguro.
Oo. Mas madali makapagkwentuhan. So, tinkle-tinkle ka pa sa mata, di ba? So, sana ganun. Okay. Okay, so number 6, decide what to talk about quickly. Lagi. If you need to lie or to make up stories, do it. Halimbawa, di ba, sabi nga nila, may example, tinanong kung sino yung favorite teacher mo. And you can think kung ano yung pangalan niya kasi siyempre matagal na. Pero may favorite teacher kayo nung high school, say, yung teacher ko ng science, mga ganyan, di ba? Pwede mong sabihin. Tapos pwede mong sabihin, she was Miss Margo. Kahit ano na, di naman nila alam kung totoo or not, di ba? Pero at least you know na she was your teacher in science or in English or in math, mga ganyan. And you can describe her kung ano yung ginagawa niya, bakit siya yung favorite teacher nyo. So, decide kaagad. So, ang pinaka-wrong way is you spend your preparation time thinking about yun nga, who your favorite teacher was. Yung iniisip mo, anong pangalan niya? You can anyway think na, alam ko okay siyang teacher kasi ganito yung ginagawa niya noon. Yun ang i-explain nyo. Again, di ba? I-explain nyo yung sa tingin nyo yung madali nyong i-explain. Yung malapit sa puso nyo, lagi. Di ba? So, halimbawa, ikaw.
Experience.
From experience.
Mas madali sa experience.
Oo. Lalo na di ba Leia, mahilig ka pakinggan si Rafi Tulfo. O di, pwede mo explain ano nangyari. Yun nga, kasi nung time na yun, I was watching, I was listening or watching, there was this lady on Rafi Tulfo who who made a complaint, mga ganyan ka, and she was beaten by her husband, and through this law, it was good because they get to file a complaint against the husband, and hopefully he would the law would like say penalize him by giving him jail time, mga ganyan. Or pwede may example kung ano nangyari, kinikwento mo lang, naalala mo, mga ganyan. Dapat ganun lang. Kaya dapat relax kayo. Kasi at the end of the day naman, isipin nyo, ang tinitingnan lang naman ng, halimbawa, ito kasi past experience, di ba? Ang tinitingnan. So, ang tinitingnan ng examiner, paano nyo gamitin ng past tense? Kung yun ang tinitingnan niya, yung grammar ninyo, kahit hindi yung information, tinitingnan niya lang kung tama yung grammar ninyo. So, kahit ano ikwento nyo. Ganun lang. Yun ang importante. Gets? So, kahit kwento lang kayo ng kwento, basta tama yung grammar. Again, if hindi yung maintindihan, you can ask for clarification. Huwag niyo sasabihin na I don't understand. Pwede niyo sabihin, you mentioned, ayan. For example, you can say, by like this, do you mean na ganito? Ganyan. If I understand correctly, it means that. So in other words, I should say, kung hindi nyo na-gets lang yung question, pwede kayong mag-clarify, humingi ng clarification. Pero wag nyo sasabihin directly na, I don't understand. Can you explain? Wag. At least, ayan, pwede nyo sabihin na, so in other words, you would need me to tell a story about, para ganun, di ba? Or, so is it okay if I talk about, ganun ang clarification, ganun kayo humingi ng clarification. Then, okay, so let's move on to, Let's move on to speaking test part 3. So automatically, pagkatapos nyo ng, say, mag-speech ng 1 to 2 minutes, hopefully, may mga follow-up questions, sometimes wala, immediately, pupunta na kayo sa part 3 of the exam. Mahaba siya, 4 to 5 minutes, and marami siyang questions. Again, it would be the same topic as part 2, and it's a question and answer portion. So halimbawa, education topic, 'di ba kanina ang part 2, halimbawa tinanong niya sa inyo kung ano yung favorite subject nyo. So sa part 3, ito yung mga abstract na questions. How has education changed in your country in the last 10 years? Yan na, mga abstract na yan. How well do you think schools prepare young people for working life? What do you think education will be like in 50 years' time? So, pang-kwan na yan, pang stock knowledge na. Mas mahirap siya konti kasi nga sometimes nga hindi nyo alam, no? Pero try to answer. And again, yeah, be prepared. Forward ko later kung ano yung latest na topic na binigay ng mga estudyante ko nung mga nag-exam. Science something saka animals eh. Forward ko, nakalimutan ko na. So again, ano yung criteria? Paano kayo gine-gradean? So, 4 ni areas yan. Number 1, chine-check nila yung fluency and coherence. Pag-aaralan natin yan kung ano yung na-cover. Number 2, lexical resource. Number 3, grammatical range and accuracy. And number 4, pronunciation. So, sa fluency and coherence, you have to speak fluently with only an occasional hesitation. So sometimes, di ba sinasabi ko sa inyo, hopefully try to remove yung, ako rin may tendency talaga na gano'n ako magsalita. Try to limit that. And anyway, kasi may mga ibibigay ako sa inyo mga sample ng mga topics, try to answer that and video yourself. Observe. Kanina hindi ko kayo ni-record, kasi ipopost ko to sa YouTube, di ba? So hindi ko ni-record yung nagsasagot kayo kanina. So later, i-record yung sarili ninyo while answering yung mga questions sample questions na ibibigay ko sa inyo later. Tapos tingnan nyo kung may mga hesitations ba kayo. Kailangan, tingnan nyo yon. I-observe nyo kung paano kayo magsalita. Kung clear ba? Anyways, clear naman kayo magsalita, so walang issue. Siguro yun nga, yung pang-organize nyo lang ng thoughts. Tapos huwag kayong mahiya para hindi lang kayo makan. Tapos again, your talk should be coherent and well-structured. Paano yan? Sa fluency, ease of speaking, so natural. Walang hesitation and repetition. Ako parang mahilig ako sometimes na masabi, basically, mga ganyan. At the end of the day, dapat maalis ko yan. Na at least while I speak, I could only say actually or basically twice dapat. Huwag lagi. Kasi di ba nakakasawa naman, pakinggan naman talaga. So, mas mataas ang grades ko kung gumagamit ako ng ibang words kaysa nire-repeat ko lagi yung favorite phrases ko. Gumagamit rin ako ng mga connectives. Yung halimbawa, yung mga cohesive devices na moreover, furthermore. Pareho lang sa writing. Try nyo na gumamit ng mga ganun rin. Mga firstly, secondly, mga cohesive devices. So, ease of speaking. So, basically, you can connect your sentences, may flow. Hindi naman kailangan na mabilis ka magsalita. Natural lang na maganda yung flow, maganda yung pagkakasunod, naintindihan yung kinikwento mo or kung ano yung na-explain mo. Ganun lang yung sa fluency. Ayan. Hesitation and repetition. Sa hesitation, iwasan ng yeah, mga ganyan, yeah. Anyway, dapat hindi ka naman talaga nag-yeah kasi 'di ba slang siya. Sabi natin sa IELTS, iwasan ang mga informal words. So iwasan mo rin yung mga gotta go, 'di ba? Okay, iwasan 'yan. So I'm going, kasi 'di ba, gotta go, I'm going, mga ganyan. Yung mga slang ng mga Americans, iwasan natin. Repetition, yun nga yung lagi akong gumagamit rin ng actually, basically, at the end of the day, dapat inaalis ko yan. So, iwasan na lagi kayong may mga favorite words. Anyway, mapapansin nyo naman once you record yourself kung ano yung mga lagi nyong inuulit na words. So, observe that para alam nyo kung ano yung may improve nyo. Okay? Pero don't worry, okay naman na kayo. So, ayan. Ayan yung mga pampabilis. Yung mga pag-umpisa. Pwede mong, well, to be honest, you know, I guess that. Naalala nyo yung pag Miss Universe, pag tinatanong kayo, tapos hindi nyo alam kung ano yung sasagutin? Para ma-prolong lang yung time, ito yung mga ginagamit mong pang-umpisa. That's a good question. Mga ganyan. Actually, in fact, so try to use these words. Lalo na kung nag-iisip kayo, di ba? So, iba-ibahin niyo yung paggamit ng mga words. So, try to use this. Then later, you can use this. So, you can use actually again. Then, in fact, ganun na. So, practice this. Again. So, gumamit ng mga connectives. These are the words that connect your sentences. So, halimbawa, yung mga and, but, then, also, dapat to yan, T-O-O. However, gumamit tayo ng mga ganyan. Ganyan din sa writing, di ba? Yung mga cohesive or linking devices. So, it's the same. Same ang tips and tricks rin sa writing and speaking more. Sa grammar part. So, halimbawa, pag sa writing, from my point of view, pwede mong sabihin na I think, I reckon, I'd say. So, ito yung mga usually na mga cohesive devices. So, in the first phase, pag sa writing, pag sa speaking, ito pwede mong gamitin firstly to kick off. In the second phase, ayan, pwede mong gamitin to also besides. So, pag sa writing, you say to sum it up, in summary, di ba? Sa speaking, overall, in a nutshell, summing it up, ganyan. So, for example, so sa speaking, like, such as, so in other words, pwede mo namang gamitin ng for example, pero at the same time, para lang mas sprinkle ng mga ibang words, walang repetition, you can use other words like, such as. Again, this is to improve your band score. So if you feel na okay naman na kayo, para ma-improve ang band score nyo, use this cohesive and linking devices. So lexical resource. Ang lexical resource is you paraphrase your sentences, you use various vocabulary, tapos you use idiomatic expressions. 'Di ba may mga it's raining cats and dogs. Mga ganyan, gumagamit ka ng mga idiomatic expressions. So for lexical resource, there are 5 things to look at. Yung range of words, wala kang mistakes, yung proper na paggamit ng vocabulary. Diba sometimes kasi kahit may pare-parehong synonyms ang mga words, pero sa paggamit ng sentence, hindi bagay yung eksaktong, yung kahit magka-synonym sila, kahit pareho yung meaning, meron pa rin meron pa rin binabagayan ang mga words, diba? So, importante rin yon. Gumamit rin kayo ng idiomatic expressions, mga collocations, again, paraphrase. So, ano yung mga yan? So, for range, halimbawa, for example, air pollution is bad for the air. Ito, di ba, wala siyang hindi siya creative sa paggamit ng mga words. Dapat, sinabi niya, air pollution, instead na bad, pwede niyang ginamit na detrimental. Again, tingnan mo, inulit na naman niya yung air dito. Ginamit mo na nga yung air dito, o ulitin mo pa dito. So, kung maganda ang range mo ng vocabulary or pagpa-paraphrase, air pollution is detrimental to the environment. Ganyan. Ganyan yung pag-explain. Okay, wala kang mistakes. Walang mistakes. Sometimes kasi, di ba, ang tendency natin is ginagawa nating adjective ang noun or ginagawa nating adverb ang a certain noun. So, halimbawa dito, air pollutes is badly for the air. Malito, di ba? Ano yung tama? Ang tama, yung kanina, yung air pollution is detrimental to the environment. Kasi dito, air pollutes. So, parang ginawang verb yung pollutes. Dapat, this should be a noun. Air pollution is badly for the air. Pangit ang paggamit ng adverb niya. Dapat sabihin niya is bad. So, doon tayo nagkakamali. Dapat hindi ganyan. Ayan. Maganda ang range mo or lexical resource mo kung gumagamit ka ng idiomatic expression. So, brush up on, yan. This will include saying verbs like as brush up on your grammar, yeah? So, ito, don't throw in the towel and you will sail through the exam with flying colors. So, idiomatic expression ng don't throw in the towel. Ibig sabihin, don't give up, di ba? And you will sail through the exam with flying colors. So, you will get through the exam, sail through, with flying colors, meaning you'll get high grades, di ba? So, maganda na gumagamit rin kayo ng idiomatic expressions. Kasi nakikita na examiner na maganda yung range nyo, yung lexical range nyo sa speaking. Ayan, collocations. Ano yung mga collocations? Do we say do a shower, make a shower, have a shower, get a shower, or become a shower? Usually go have a shower, di ba? So, check kung ano yung mga samples ng collocations sa Google. So, you can use it. Anyway, yung dun sa libro na, yung, I think yung IELTS mistakes, usual mistakes, na-discuss yung collocations rin doon. So, maganda lahat yung resource. Hopefully, talagang makover nyo lahat yun. And prepared na prepared kayo. And you will get yung, masusurprise kayo sa grade nyo pag na-cover nyo lahat yung mga materials na binigay ko sa inyo. Talagang hard work will pay off. If you feel na hindi kayo ready ngayon, basta mag-practice lang kayo and you do everything, don't worry, you will get higher than, may mga, yung isa kong estudyante, 8 siya sa listening. Hindi niya ina-expect. Pero yun lang kasi prepare niya rin. Parang nag-focus siya sa listening. Sabi ko, ano nangyari? Di ba sabi ko, mag-focus ka rin sa reading? Oo, ma'am, sabi niya. Alam niya yung pagkukulang niya. Pero talaga, nasayahan siya kasi alam niya nag-prepare siya sa listening. Kaya ganun yung score niya, mataas. So, kailangan lang talaga mag-practice kayo, do yung mga worksheets, do the exercises, mataas ang band score niyo. So, don't worry. Ayan, paraphrase. So, di ba may mga instances na nininervyos kayo and sometimes may mga words na hindi nyo masabi na sa tip of your tongue. So, if you lack yung vocabulary, try to explain that or try to paraphrase that. No, para hindi kayo nervyosin na, di ba may time na sasabihin nyo, no, nasa tip ng tongue ko yung gusto kong sabihin na word. So, instead of waiting and naninervyos ka na, explain mo na lang or describe that word para lang matuloy-tuloy mo lang yung magsasalita mo. Okay? So, ito yung parang nag-paraphrase siya. So, nagtanong yung examiner, do you have any brothers and sisters? Normally, ang sasagutin mo, yes, I have one brother and I have 2 sisters. Mga ganon. Pag pinaraphrase or ginamit ng ibang vocabulary, mas maganda na sinabi niya, yes, I've got 3 siblings. which is, I have 2 brothers and 1 sister, pwedeng ganon. At least na-explain mo, gumamit ka pa ng ibang vocabulary. So, mas mataas yung grade mo. Again, mataas rin ang grade mo if you use a wide range of grammatical structures with only occasional errors. Ano yung wide range of grammatical structures? Sibas, usually pag nagpo-form tayo ng sentences, lalo na pag bata, very simple lang yung I run, I eat cake, I like eating, mga ganon. Pero pero walang problema yon. If you're quite basic, para lang correct yung grammar mo, do that. Do that, ha? Pero if you feel na yun nga, okay naman kayo sa English, hopefully, dapat wide range yung sentence structures nyo. Gawin yung complex. Halimbawa, ito. Basically, di ba, 1 clause and 1 tense. Halimbawa, ito, I live in London. It's a beautiful city. I like it very much. Very simple, pero it's correct grammar. So it's also okay to do this, but then if you want a higher score, make it more complex. So dapat more than 1 clause, maybe 2 or 3, and more than 1 tense or different tenses. Ito example niya. I am living in London, which is a beautiful city. So dalawang clauses yan. Or, and I have been living here for 2 years. So complex yung sentence, tatlo yung clauses, tapos iba yung tenses, di ba? I am living, present ito is a beautiful city, and I have been living. So present perfect, mga ganyan. Minix niya. So mas complex yung grammar niya, higher yung band score. Pero, class, wag niyong ipilit kung sa tingin nyo, hindi nyo pa gamay masyado yung grammar nyo. Make it as simple as possible para lang ma-explain nyo yung gusto nyo sabihin. Okay? Para hindi kayo na-pressure rin. Pero again, if you feel na okay kayo sa grammar, wala kayong problema, make it as complicated as possible. No? Okay, walang problema kung ang pronunciation mo is Bisaya ka, or Ilocano, or matigas. Ang very important is they understand yung words. Kasi may mga nakaka-perfect band score kahit yung nga Chinese or Spanish yung accent, nakaka-perfect pa rin sila. May mga tao nakakakuha pa rin ng perfect. Kahit yung Indian, mga ganyan, na pronunciation, walang problema yun. So, ayan. So, even if you have an Indian, or let's say a Brazilian or German accent, or let's say, yung mga accent, di ba, ng mga Malaysian or Singaporeans, iba rin, di ba? Walang problema. Accent is okay, kasi you can even get a 9. Just make sure na, yun nga, yung pronunciation nyo, yung intonation ng words, na intindihan, nagigets. Yun nga lang ang problema no pag nakamask ka na, yun lang. So make sure, even if you're wearing the mask, when you record yourself, see if you can understand yung mga words na sinasabi ninyo. Okay? Dapat makita nyo. Kung hindi nyo naintindihan kung ano yung sinasabi ninyo, practice more with your intonation. Siguro kailangan nyo lang erase nyo yung chin nyo para talagang ma-vocalize yung words. Kasi very important na mapakinggan kayo, di ba? Mapakinggan kayo clearly. So make sure when you're practicing and taking a video of yourself or you're recording yourself while practicing yung mga mga questions, mga sample questions na ibibigay ko, make sure na naintindihan nyo sarili nyo. Or ask somebody to watch you also. Or if you have a friend or your husband, sabihin mo, kahit brutal ka, sabihin mo sa akin kung anong kulang ko. Yung mga ganyan. Di ba? So practice. So, ayan, in a simplified way, so when you pause like this or connecting words, so dapat okay ang vocabulary mo, gumagamit ka ng collocation, nagpa-paraphrase ka, grammar mo, ito yung didiscuss natin. So, pronunciation, word stress, intonation, connected speech, nandiyan pati yung sa book, natin na reviewer, nilalagay rin dun kung paano mo i-pronounce yung alphabet. Paano ka rin magsalita ng 1, 2, 3, 4. Diba? Siguro sa atin yung
IPA po, International Phonetic Alphabet.
Oo, pakinggan nyo rin yun. Kasi, importante yung sa listening. Para kung sakaling may magsabi ng pero again, when you're speaking also, it's also good na you speak clearly.
Yes.
So practice those. Ano pa? Very important na very easy kayo to understand. So if you feel na hindi kayo maintindihan, bagalan nyo siguro yung magsalita. Para mas clear, mas maintindihan kayo. Kaya very important, habang sinasagot nyo yung mga test questions, you have to record yourself. Kasi later naman, it's not enough kung ano yung mga feedback ko during your speaking test later. At least, di ba, iba pa rin yung self-reflection. Na parang, teka, ang pangit ng sagot ko. Teka, at least. Kasi sometimes naman, mas harsh tayo sa sarili natin, di ba? So, very important, record yourself, okay? Ano ito? Ayan, how to prepare for the speaking test. You have to get a preparation buddy or tutor. And anyway, it's a good thing kasi nag-enroll na kayo sa IELTS masterclass natin. So it's good. Pero again, as an additional preparation, you have to practice with somebody. Pwede ka naman mag-practice alone, yun nga, nire-record mo sarili mo, or you look at yourself in the mirror and speak. Diba? Pero iba pa rin pag nire-record. So i-record yun. Ang maganda ngayon, diba, we have all the technology na pwede natin gamitin at hand. Noon wala. Ngayon, pwede na tayo mag-record. So, use them. Use the technology that we have. So, record yourself on your phone or on your computer. Do that. And, again, practice making notes. Tapos, visualize. Very important yan. Sabi nga naman nila, if you want to be successful, di ba sometimes may mga sinasabi sila, do a vision board. Kung ano yung mga pangarap mo sa future. Tapos, makukuha mo yun, yung mga dreams mo, may mga vision board ka. So, before the exam, you have to visualize. Kasi when you attract positive energy will come to you. Diba? Sabi nga naman nila. So, just before the test, you can find a quiet place, you close your eyes, you can pray. So, or you can see also yourself entering the test room confidently, sitting down and talking. Tapos you're saying great answer. So, visualize. Meditate. Ganyan. At ito yung sinasabi ko kanina na you have to mirror the examiner. Kasi di ba sometimes if you sit in the same position as the examiner, you follow their posture, ginagaya mo kung paano sila magganon, parang parehong wavelength, so gumagaan yung loob ng tao sa inyo. Lahat yan sa psychology. Sa pag-aaral ng psychology, sabi nila pag minimimik mo yung tao, malaki yung chances na mapapagaan ng loob yung tao sa'yo. Ganun yun. So, practice this with a friend. So, okay. So, this is a sample video. Sa part 2, ano yung, it's regarding a decision, tapos ano yung sample answer. So, let's.
Okay, now in this next sample answer, we're going to be looking at an activity sample answer. Activity or action sample answer. And here is going to be the topic of making a decision. Right, so now this is a four-part question, all right? And so this is the question where it's always talking about describe a time when you had to make an important decision. That's the question. Describe a time when you had to make an important decision. So the prompts are, what was the decision? What are the choices that you have? Why you made the decision that you did, and explain if you think the decision was good. So, as I said in the previous video, you could put down one discussion point, 2 discussion points, 3 discussion points. It doesn't matter, right? Just know that if you have 3 discussion points, that gives you at least like 4 to 5 sentences you can create off of those 3 discussion points. If you have 1 discussion point that you're going to make, or 1 discussion point under this prompt of what was the decision, you're going to have to really work to extend that out so you can fill up the full 2 minutes. But the first point is, what was the decision? Going to the USA, study architecture. What other choices did you have? China, Australia, stay at home. Why you made the decision that you did. Familiar culture, diversity, and recommendations, and then also explain if you think the decision was good. Right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this first one in terms of what was the decision. So we're going to talk about two of the prompts here. We're going to talk about what was the decision, and then going into what are the choices that you have. Now, normally, if I have 4 decision points or four discussion points under one prompt, then what's going to happen, I'm going to maybe not have I'm not going to say so much information for each point, because I have to make sure I finish. I have to finish within those 2 minutes. And one of the biggest mistakes that a lot of students make is that they don't finish within the time period. Okay? So here I will be talking about going to the USA, studying architecture, and also in the next paragraph talking about the other choices. So to make it sound more natural, I'm going to read point 1 and point 2 together. One major resolution I made in life involved my matriculation from Ghana to the USA to study architecture. Settling on studying in the USA meant I'd have to spend 4 years away from home. Now, living and learning with Americans was not the only option, since universities in Australia and China presented me with full scholarships based upon my past accomplishments. China had to be disregarded due to the language barrier, and Australia was taken out of consideration based upon the distance from my homeland. One other option was to remain at home, but the Accra institutions did not utilize the latest architectural methods. Right? Now, in one of the other lecture videos that you'll be able to get to later on, you'll hear me answer a question in a more natural way. There's a difference when you're reading out an answer to somebody and speaking naturally. Really, the main purpose of this sample answer is really just to give you the kind of language, vocabulary, fluency, and grammar that you want to use to be able to score very well. So here we're using really good synonym language with major resolution. Matriculation, which means going from one place to another, really great high-level word. Settling on, phrasal verb, really scores you some really high points. Now is a great fluency tool. Since is a great fluency tool because it helps you extend and to explain. China had to be disregarded, another great vocabulary word. Due to. I don't have it highlighted, but due to is like since, it helps you to extend. And, meaning I'm doing a compound sentence. Based upon, also really good fluency language that helps me to extend, right? So I hope you you really are able to absorb this vocabulary, this fluency language, this grammar that I'm using, and then I want you to be able to practice doing it on your own. All right, next, why you made the decision that you did. Familiar culture, diversity, and recommendations are what we're going to talk about here. Settling on the USA as my temporary home involved considerations of culture, diversity, and recommendations. Actually, culture played a huge part in the decision. Because I'd grown up watching American movies, I felt that I understood the lifestyle and would have an easier relocation. Naturally, I'd want a diverse experience since my country lacks this aspect. So, the United States, being the most diverse country on earth, made quite an impression on me. To tell you the truth, the most influence came from my family members, who previously graduated from universities in New York and California. So here we see really good fluency language, actually, naturally, to tell you the truth. Right here, I have this highlighted in green because this is a great example of parallelism. We're using since and so to create compound complex sentences, using a relative clause, who. So all of this grammar, vocabulary, this really gives you a lot of really good tools that you can use to give a great answer. Okay, discussion point number 3. Explain if you think the decision was good. So here I'm going to talk about groundbreaking research and excellent job. So only 2 prompts here, only 2 discussion points here. That being said, I couldn't deny that leaving home wasn't filled with doubt and considerable reservations. But ultimately, studying abroad in Detroit served me well. Taking into account the fact that during my 4-year stay, I produced groundbreaking research on the restoration of ancient West African architectural techniques, I'd have to say that the decision was rewarding. This research led to my attaining an excellent position with a top architectural firm that is actually putting my research into real modern-day constructions. And here, really for this phrase, it should be taking into account, not the account, right? Taking into account. So let's make that correction. Taking into account. All right. Now, one thing here that will be really impressive to a grader is we have a lot of challenging words to pronounce that all are coming together at the same time. Groundbreaking, compound word, research, restoration, architectural techniques, and then we have some good fluency language. I'd have to say that the decision was rewarding. So if you're able, really, from this point, from taking into account to this part right here where we have rewarding, that's a lot of skill in that one sentence, that one combination of language together. Taking into account the fact that during my 4-year stay, I produced groundbreaking research on the restoration of ancient West African architectural techniques, I'd have to say that the decision was rewarding. Right? I'll say it one more time so you can work on your pronunciation. Taking into account the fact that during my 4-year stay, I produced groundbreaking research on the restoration of ancient West African architectural techniques, I'd have to say the decision was rewarding. This research led to my attaining an excellent position with a top architectural firm that is actually putting my research into real modern-day constructions. Okay, so thank you very much for joining me on that.
So class, what's this now? So ito naman yung part 3. So it's the same topic. It's about a decision answer. So makikita niyo yung progress na naging abstract na yung questions. So let's watch this.
Okay, now let's move into the part 3 decisions answers. This is the companion to the part 2 decisions question. Here we have a young man who's making a decision. He's making a decision right there. What skills are necessary to make good decisions? Off the top of my head, a couple of attributes come to mind. One being an ability to think outside the box. This would enable you to look at a problem from angles that were not previously considered. Also, arranging a pros and cons list, as well as having a deep knowledge of self, will provide considerable aid in coming to a particular conclusion. Last but not least, vision and examining worst-case scenarios help reach rewarding decisions. Do parents in your country allow children to make important decisions? Normally, Ghanaian parents involve themselves in major resolutions that concern their offspring. Because Ghana is more of a collective culture, it will be a rare occasion when a child can control their fate solely on their own accord. If this were the USA, children would be given such freedoms, but in Ghana, this attitude is thought to lead to poor outcomes due to lack of wisdom. Right? Of course, in red we have really good vocabulary that's related to the question, thinking outside the box, pros and cons, knowledge of self, vision, worst case scenarios. Last but not least is great fluency language. Off the top of my head is great fluency language. Normally, great fluency language, major resolution, synonym language, offspring synonym language, control their fate solely on their own, make their own decisions, synonym language, conditional sentence, outcome, synonym language. Do you think parents should make important decisions? Do you think parents should make important decisions for their children? Do you think parents should make important decisions for their children? Okay? All right. Based on what I just said about Ghanaian parents, yes, all major resolutions should be controlled by a parental figure. Some argue that preventing children from deciding their fate detracts from their ability to make determinations later in life. When you think about it, this line of thought cannot be more wrong, because wisdom leads to good resolutions, and this wisdom is only gained by allowing those that have it to take the lead on significant decisions that need to be reached. All right, so here is really good fluency and coherence language, because I'm really connecting back to the previous sentence. And here we have great vocabulary, major resolutions, detracts. Determinations means like decisions. Detracts means taking away from. This line of thought, this type of thinking, really great language. Okay, so make sure that you add this language into your own answer choices. All right, and thank you very much.
Okay. Anong oras na ba? There's another video. Nangyari. Okay. There's another video that I'd like you to watch later na lang. Kasi ang dami niyo nang napanood na video, nakakapagod. Kung siya, applicable siya sa job interview, so sa speaking exam. It's a TED Ed talk by Amy Cuddy. Basically, sinasabi niya na pag pinalitan natin yung the way we act, it would also affect how we think about ourselves. Basically, yun yung gist or summary ng video. So, pag na-forward ko na lang, panoorin nyo na lang, kasi mahaba na. Nakapagod. Mga 20 minutes yun.
Oo, ma'am.
Oo. Pagod na ba kayo makinig ng video, manood?
Di
Pwede
naman
niyong-
po.
Pwede nyo, sige, teka, later. Ano ba, 9:30?
Nakapalo kasi ako sa yung TED Talk po. Nanonood talaga ako ng TED Talk.
Sige, teka. Balikan lang natin. So,
Sila si Leia Mel tsaka si Jonah. Okay na po. Pwede naman na lang. At least habang nagsha-shower ka mamaya may mapapa.
Pero ito class, gusto ko tong ano to? Saan yung binuksan ko? Ito. Since kanina, di ba, may mga sample tayo ng how to make this big. There. Wait. May mga sample tayo kanina ng part 2 and part 3 na type of questions. If you have, I would prefer that you can read through this, yung mga samples, and try to answer them on your own later. Try to record also. So mga 49 pages. So maybe try to practice. Halimbawa, ito yung part 2. Describe someone who is a great leader. Tapos ito yung part 3 na ka-connect na sagot. Mga ganyan. Ito na naman, may part 2. Tapos ito yung ka-connect na part 3. So if you have time, record yourself answering this. Yeah, ayan. Gawa kayo ng notes nyo, tapos practice nyo na gumawa kayo ng speech. Tapos, as a friend, or somebody you know, housemate, or your husband or your partner there, natanungin kayo dito sa part 3. No? Tapos record yourself para ma-practice kayo. Part 2 and part 3. Oo.
Yung sa part 2 po, like for example, pag nagbibigay po yung task examiner ng task card po, like for example, yung discuss a historical building you have visited before and why you enjoyed it, yung mga what, where, and why po, andun din siya sa task card or
Nandun. Ito mga
Kaya,
1, 2, 3. Yan, 1, 2, 3. Para
Akala ko
mapahaba.
yung parang yung first question lang yun yung yan, tapos ikaw yung
Hindi. Ang maganda doon, ipapakita niya lahat. Hindi ko kayo makita. Nasaan na yung pan ko? Ba't nawawala ka? Okay. Lahat yan. Ito, lahat yun. Nasa card yan. Ito. Lahat yan. Yan lang ang mapakita niya sa inyo. Tapos sa exam, sa part 3, tatanungin niya kayo nito. Additional yan. Tapos again, ito, papakita niya yan sa inyo yan. Naka-cue card yan. So try to practice. Hopefully, yeah, try at least once per week. Mga sagutan nyo, no? 3 per week, hopefully, no? Kaya nyo ba yun? At least ko nyo lang to. Tapos, may ibibigay akong book sa inyo. Ito. Tips for IELTS speaking. So, wait. Share. New share. Yan. So, tips for IELTS speaking. Ito yung, di ba, dito kinukuha rin yung lagi. So, ito yung mga topics. Yan. Basahin nyo lang to para alam niyo yung mga topics. Usual topics. Kasi nandito lahat. Ano yung mga topics? Nandyan lahat. No? Sasabihin niya rin, ano yung mga usual sagot. At least alam mo na, parang nagkaroon na kayo ng self-reflection na, okay, what kind of television programs do you watch? So, i-ready nyo lang na meron kayong usual. May pet ba kayo? Wala. Mga ganyan. Anong food ang gusto nyo? I-ready nyo lang na may sagot kayo for that. Gusto mo ba nagsha-shopping? Hindi. Bakit? May alam ka bang festival? So, at least ready mo lang na may alam kang festival. Di ba? Sinulog, kung ano man. Or say, kung ako taga Baguio, so flower festival, mga ganyan. So, ready lang kayo na may sagot kayo. Kung topic is festival, may sagot kayo. Ready mo lang yan. So, ang maganda dito, pag binasa mo to, yun nga, nagre-ready ka lang ng mga possible answers mo. Dancing? Hindi. Ganyan. So, it's a good thing. Just go through them. Okay, class? What else? Marami talaga akong materials, kaya kulang. Kasi, talagang kulang. Kulang talaga. Again, may samples dito. How to be from general to specific. Teka, saan to? Hindi ko yata to na-share. General to specific. Saan na siya? Wait, class. Ba't di nagbubukas yun? Okay. Ba't di ko makita yun? May isi-share na lang ako sa inyo. From general to specific. Ba't nawawala? Ba't di niya okay. Paano sumagot ng from general to specific? Basahin nyo lang later. Tapos ano pa? Sentence building. Paano nyo pagandahin yung sentence? Nandun rin. Just go through them. So, I'll give you... Teka. Ipadala ko na sa inyo yung kwan. What's up? What's up? What's up natin? Sana tayo? Padala ko tong kwan. Yung practice. So, I'll give you time to read this now. Kasi I know once na nakaset naman kayo hanggang 10 o'clock lagi, di ba?
Yes.
Oo. So, given na kailangan. So, practice saka ito. Basahin nyo yan. I'll send by WeTransfer yung PowerPoint natin na nandun na rin yung mga videos para kung gusto nyo ulit panoorin later. May forward pa ako isang video later siguro. Yung hindi nakakabit dati sa PowerPoint. So, I've sent you yung book. Tapos yung part 2 and part 3. So, try to practice it, okay? If you want to send me a video of it later, you can. Let me know also. Anyway, we will have the speaking test. So, magpapadala ako ng sked, possible sked. Starting next Sunday. Speaking test na natin next Sunday, okay? So, siguro mag-start tayo ng mga 7:30 or 8. Depende kasi para hindi kayo mag-rush, no? So, 7:30 to 8. Tapos 8:30 to 9. 9:30 to 10. 30 minutes each. Kung hindi kayo free ng next Sunday, kung ayaw nyo muna mag-exam, let me know kung okay kayo ng Monday or Tuesday. Same timing ng gabi, ha? Again, let me know kung ayaw nyo pang mag-speaking test. Hindi, maganda na mag-speaking test na kayo. Then, if you want again another speaking test before your exam, mga after 2 months or 1 month, let me know also, okay? Pero importante na mag-speaking test na kayo next week. Tapos kung naka-schedule na kayo sa exam, balikan nyo ako, practice rin tayo again. Para lang relax kayo. Okay, class?
Thank you po. Okay po. Thank you.
Kasi tapos next week, paki-ready yung mga essay ninyo. Paki-ready yung grades nyo sa listening, yung grades nyo sa reading.
And so,
Oo. Kung sumagot pa kayo ng ibang mga practice exams sa libro, kasi 'di ba? In-expect ko sana sumagot kayo sa mga libro. Pero after ng speaking test natin, magbibigay na naman ako ng more na practice test. Kasi very important na mas marami kayong masugatan na practice test. Pero I want to see kung nag-improve kayo sa listening, kung sa tingin niyo nag-improve kayo para alam natin kung ano yung pa yung mga areas for improvement. Or sasabihin ko na huwag ka munang kumuha ng exam, mag 1 month, 2 months, or mag 3 months ka munang mag-review. Mga ganyan. Pero basically, 1 month, 2 months, carry na yun. Pero kung marami kang pera, mag-exam ka na. Diba? Oo. Kasi mawawala yung nervyos mo. Kung kayo yung tipong ganon, mag-exam ka na. Kung kaya mo ipikit yung 1,000.
sayang. Ano po siya, naka-budget po siya.
Yun nga eh, diba? Yun ang mahirap. Kaya mas ninervyos kayo, di ba? Kasi naka-budget na, malaki yun eh, di ba? Parang 13,000 na sa atin, 13 to 15,000 na sa atin. Ang laki nun. Diba? So, kailangan mag-prepare kayo. No? Kung gusto nyo mag-speaking exam lagi, pero i-record nyo, answer yung pre-forward ko and read the book, okay? So, if you have any more questions. Pero at the end of the day, yun, self-reflection, i-ready nyo yung mga possible sagot nyo. Don't memorize, okay? At least alam nyo, yung mga the usual topics, may isasagot kayo. Alam nyo na, automatic. Para you don't need to, wala na, hindi na kayo mag-iisip. Alam nyo na, di ba? Anong festival, anong birthday, anong celebration sa Philippines, ano yung mga national holidays natin, mga ganyan. Kasi yun yung mga usual topics. Nire-recycle lang yan lagi. Lahat, nire-recycle yan. So, kaya laging, balik ka lang sa reviewer. Lahat. Actually, pag tinignan mo lahat ng reviewers, pare-pareho yan. So, once na-cover mo na, yan. Talagang practice lang. Naiyak-carry ka lang. No? 9:30 pa lang. Any questions? So, read yung book and do practice yung part 2 and part 3 na pinadala ko by WhatsApp. Okay?
Yes po.
Kain na tayo ng dinner?
Yes po.
Okay lang naman, hindi naman tayo nag-break eh. So, that's good. So, tuloy-tuloy naman tayo, hindi tayo nag-break. So, it's okay. It's within our time. Okay, any questions? See you next week.
Yes po.
Kung if you cannot make it sa... Ikaw, Leia, yung mahilig, no? Na hindi ka sometimes kwan.
Oo nga po eh.
Oo. Walang problema. Make it a Monday or a Tuesday. Oo. So, Walang problema. Flexible naman ako, basta nandito ako sa bahay ng gabi. Oo. Kahit wag tayo matulog ng 10, 10:30, 11. O, di ba? 30 minutes lang naman eh. Oo. So, let me know. Okay?
Okay po.
See you next week and see you after again later. Just let me know. Open naman. Maganda nga yung may Zoom eh. Di ba?
Yes.
Kaya tayo mag-meeting kahit kailan. Okay, enjoy! And don't forget your essays.
Yes po.
The
Thank
more
you.
you write, better. Okay?
Yes.
The more napahirapan yung sarili nyo, better. Sige.
Sige po.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Good night po.
Good night.